Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Mid-South Wrestling Review Series starting 1984, January 14th, 1984. Not sure where January 7th went, but it's not available on the network. I will go back and attempt to find it if it exists anywhere else at the end of the network available stuff. Terry Taylor accosts the Volkov and Darso, at least that's what it says on the little blip on the network. Anyway, Volkov and Darso basically say they want competition. Darso leading the promo for his newfound friend, and the saying that he wants competition is a pretty big deal. Terry Taylor comes out and as a babyface, which is different. I mean, a lot of people obviously know Taylor for his Red Rooster run, where obviously he was a failed babyface, but um, to me, he reminds me of the heel of the York Foundation and Terrible Terry era and all of that. So it's interesting to see him as a babyface. I know a lot of people like him in that role, and I do too. Terry Taylor actually, as Terry Taylor, one of my favorite talents that doesn't get a lot of airtime play. Anyway, he comes out and brawls around with Darsaw and um, and Volkov, but there's almost an impromptu match that starts. He is trying to jumpstart his career and basically says he'll take on Volkov right now. Volkov with a body slam and Taylor up over the shoulder, or attempted the kind of roll drop kick. Taylor with a little bit shorter hair than normal. He's fired up as a babyface. He's, I guess, been in Florida because they make fun of him as a Florida boy. He gets a roll up and a near fall there. Sunset flip 1-2 and comes out the back door. Actually, I think the referee signals a 3, or at least Taylor treats it like a 3. Darso comes running in, and there's a series of drop kicks on Darso, and Taylor is victorious in this. Then we go to a Terry Taylor match that is more meant for his speed. Doug Vines is the enhancement talent opponent here. Vines kind of looks a little different, cut his hair differently, and just kind of looking, I don't know if I'd say more professional, more trimmed, but a series of drop kicks again by Taylor. Taylor, the classic babyface, goes in with the arm drag and nails his spots there. Misses the clothesline, leapfrog by Taylor. Taylor with the flying forearm, otherwise known as the 5-arm, 1-2-3, and gets a victory there. Sword and Higgins versus JYD and Hacksaw Duggan is up next. Interesting team of Duggan and JYD. Somewhere along the way, over the last little while, JYD is still your North American champion, at least in this general time frame, because in the next couple of weeks he's promoted as getting a new challenger for that championship. Exactly where that happened, I do not remember, but it's hard when you're consuming the vast amount of content that I do, and also the announcers aren't always good at keeping you abreast of who the champions are. That's sketchy. Anyway, Duggan starts off brawling there, a couple clotheslines and the like. JYD comes in and he's hits some headbutts and whatnot. Higgins falls. Higgins, I think, still could have been a bigger talent than he was in terms of impact. Duggan tags off, hits the knee drop, and ultimately is pretty assertive aggressive there. Duggan sends his adversary into the buckle, and it would have been interesting to see them meaning Duggan and JYD, as a more regular team. Not quite sure at what point JYD leaves, but I'm almost sure it's in '84 that he leaves. So he's I think months away from leaving. Like, I mean, I can't imagine putting him in WrestleMania 1 without him having been in WWF for at least a little while. Anyway, big clothesline by JYD, and he goes for the cover there. Swords comes out the back door, and it's pretty clear that JYD and Duggan are, at least for the moment, handling things pretty well there. Um, Knee drop by Duggan. Duggan almost relying on the knee drop too many times. I think it's the second, at least second, if not third time in the match he's used that move, and he's not in there as a full-time guy. Duggan manages to hit the football type tackle and gets a victory there. Interesting that Duggan takes the fall and not JYD. I just kind of think that he is already beginning to foreshadow maybe JYD dropping in importance just a little bit. Usually, he'd be the one to take the fall. Garner and Ralston versus Magnum TA and Wrestling 2. Ralston's new. Garner's been here a few times. Enhancement Talent Match, non-title tag team champions. Wrestling 2 and TA. And they are continuing to roll along. Of course, they won the championships at the end of the year. And for the most part, are doing pretty okay. Anyway, TA in with a couple of hammerlocks and the like, really basic stuff. Anyway, Cornette comes out and basically says his team, the Midnight Express, has been begging for opportunities. They haven't gotten them. And we see a beautiful angle worth going out of your way to see if you've never seen it before. The Midnight Express runs in at the bequest of Jim Cornette, and he distracts them long enough for Magnum TA to get tarred and feathered in the middle of the ring. I can only imagine the heat. It doesn't come across well on TV. Maybe the things aren't mic'd or we're spoiled. But, you know, I mean, the crowd's hot, but they're not as hot as you would imagine this type of angle to be, at least in my opinion. But anyway, Midnight Express, Weingroff, and Poffo up next, and I will grab my phone and be right back to you in a couple shakes of a lamb's tail. But again, ultimately, I mean, the Midnight Express certainly probably the biggest team in the area at the time. The Rock and Rolls come in within a couple of months. We do see the Midnight Express, you know, squaring off and really going to town on their adversaries here. The benefit of Poffo takes a heck of a bump over the top rope for a Bobby Eaton punch. Poffo, a fantastic talent, I think is sorely underrated at this time and throughout his career. Big body slam by Bobby Eaton, and Eaton again hits an elbow drop, and again, you know, we kind of see Condrey cutting things off a little bit, managing to get, I wouldn't say fully aggressive, but you know, he's snapping Snapmare over, and a lot of good work that the Midnight Express continue to be a team that's on the rise here. Good double teams by them, and they are continuing to come into their own. Again, they run 84 through 87 with Condrey and Eaton, and so I mean they've got, you know, a pretty good run. Anyway, hard shots by Bobby. Also, Poffo doesn't die in the middle, meaning he fights back, but it's not, you know, I guess as successful as some people might like. The bear hug by Condrey. Eaton knocks his opponent off. Weingroff isn't as involved in the match as one would expect. Weingroff and Bobby, I'm sorry, Weingroff and Poffo, the ones putting the opposition out there. Tag off finally, and Weingroff does come in. He cleans house on the Midnight Express, which is a little weird because he hasn't been pushed as a major guy, but the hot tag is the reason that he cleans house. Punches are his primary offense. Tag off by the benefit of the Midnight Express. And again, we kind of see the Midnights, you know, take some shots along the way, and hard shot. And then we see Eaton manages to kind of tag off and manages to get some back elbows there, among other things. And ultimately, um, they do the backdrop, the backdrop hammer thrust finish, and ultimately a win there. Jim Neidhart and Tom Letts. Letts, again, a guy that I've mentioned. I don't quite understand why they bring him in to kind of squash him. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But anyway, a tie up, and Neidhart basically rocks the ring with some shoulder tackles. Letts does get a Irish whip, but then gets kicked for his trouble. Then Neidhart manages to get, you know, as much of a offensive run as he can. Again, shoulder tackles in the corner. Neidhart in certain deal is a pretty big aggressive guy here. Manages the Samoan drop, gets the victory for himself there. Crusher Darsaw against Dr. Death Steve William is your, I guess you'd say, semi-main event. I will also mention that we go back to Magnum TA being interviewed after getting tarred and feathered. Out of sequence, apologize for that. Basically, Magnum TA with feathers still on the body, interviewed, and they want revenge on the Midnight Express, obviously. Oddly, Mr. Wrestling 2 does the majority of talking, mainly because he kind of takes over and says that there will be vengeance taken here. Kind of a bland promo for the angle that just occurred. It just falls kind of flat. It felt like they didn't really plan a major promo out of it. Shoulder tackles and the such by Dr. Death Steve William, who slams a big Khrushchev in the middle, and ultimately Dr. Death with a series of body slams. Doesn't even take the jacket off in the early stages of things. Cut off by Darsaw and sending the big doctor into the turnbuckle, and we kind of see that going in a, I guess you'd say, a positive direction. Back chinlock and some ride time on that. Slows the match down a bit, and finally Williams does come back to his feet, or at least try to. Takes a bit to get there from here, and you know, it's a slower match than one would expect, although Steve Williams hasn't found his full power yet, so I think that has something to do with it. They get about 2 or 3 minutes, actually, out of the reverse chinlock. And again, Darsaw does take an attempted pinfall on his man. Doesn't get everything he wants on that, but gets enough. Double shot there, and ultimately, we see Williams manage to hit a tackle and gets a couple of chop blocks and the like, and Williams eventually does get a victory here. I believe, pretty sure that the tackles are where it stops. We kind of actually interference from Nikolai Volkov leads to, and I know why because I'm ahead in watching, leads to a victory for Crusher Darsaw, and that is there. Final match of the program, Butch Reed, who's kind of fallen off since being North American champion, against Rick Rude. Rude still an enhancement talent here, so you're not going to see, a great abundance of action here. Rude doing majority selling. He looks puny compared to what he ends up. Not that he's a small guy by any stretch of the imagination, but in comparison to where he is 3 or 4 years later in terms of muscular definition, certainly looks like a different guy. Anyway, Reed choking him out over the middle rope and kind of getting every advantage he can get. Hard shots by Rude. Rude right in the face, and actually does take a bit of offensive liberties with him a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, and ultimately it's there. And it's Reed sends him into the mat as often as he can, as consistently as he can. Hooks him up with a chin lock, and kind of keeps it. I wouldn't say fully secondary, but it's there. Hard shots by Rude. Rude manages to hit a shoulder tackle, and again we go over, and Rude gets sent into the ropes. Actually, gets kind of a whiplash effect. Meanwhile, press slam by Reed. Reed, massive power with the press slam there, gets the victory off of that. And we close the first available show in January with a Butch Reed victory. We'll be back with more right after this.